Before the world knew his name, before the lights and the belts and the roar of the crowd, there was just a boy, hiding in the dark. Not from a man, not from an animal, but from ghosts. The ghosts were not made of shadows. They were made of hunger, of insults, of fears that crawled into his mind at night and told him, "You are nothing. You will be nothing." This boy had no trophies, no friends, no safe place. He had a father who disappeared like smoke. He had a mother who tried, but life was too heavy for her thin shoulders. And he had streets that had no mercy, streets that taught children to either eat or be eaten. He did not grow up learning how to throw a punch in a boxing gym. He learned it in alleys, on cracked sidewalks, in schoolyards where bullies circled him like vultures. His fists were not born from sport, they were born from pain. That boy's name was Michael Gerard Tyson. And this is not the story you have seen in highlight reels. This is not the tale of just a champion. This is the secret life, the unseen fight, the truth that hides in the shadows of Mike Tyson's legend. This is the story of his struggles, his traumas, his mystery, and the real reason for his success. The reason that no belt, no title, no newspaper ever truly captured. Mike Tyson was born on June 30th, 1966, in Brooklyn, New York. His childhood was not painted in bright colors. It was written in the gray of cracked walls, in the sound of sirens, in the smell of desperation. His father left when Mike was just 2 years old. His mother, Lorna, worked hard, but the money was never enough, and the love she had to give was often swallowed by stress. They lived in Brownsville, a neighborhood where you learned early that kindness could get you hurt, and trust could get you killed. Mike was shy, soft-spoken, and smaller than other kids. That made him a target. Bigger boys would push him, take his clothes, laugh at the way he talked. And the more they laughed, the more Mike withdrew. But the streets are teachers, cruel teachers, and they taught him that silence was weakness. By the age of 11, the boy who once avoided fights had learned to start them. His punches came fast, not because he loved violence, but because he hated being helpless. Soon, his fists weren't just for defense. They became a tool for survival. He started stealing, robbing, running with older boys who treated crime like a sport. By the time he was 13, he had been arrested more than 30 times. Imagine that, still a child, but already with a criminal record longer than most grown men. The police knew his name. The streets knew his face. And somewhere deep inside, Mike began to believe the voices that said, "This is all you'll ever be." But life is strange. Sometimes it hides blessings in the ugliest places. One of those arrests sent Mike to the Tryon School for Boys, a juvenile detention center. Most saw it as punishment. For Mike, it was the door to the rest of his life. At Tryon, there was a counselor who noticed something unusual about Mike. It wasn't just that he was tough. It was the way he moved when he was angry, quick, powerful, like an animal that had been caged too long. This counselor introduced Mike to Bobby Stewart, a former boxer. The first time Bobby put gloves on Mike's hands, something happened. It wasn't just power in those punches, it was a story. Every blow carried the weight of hunger, of fear, of the years spent being mocked and beaten. Bobby saw what the streets had missed. This boy was not just a fighter. He was a storm waiting to be unleashed. Bobby decided to take Mike to someone who could shape that storm, the legendary trainer Cus D'Amato. Cus was not just a boxing coach. He was a philosopher of the ring, a man who believed that boxing was 90% mental and 10% physical. The first time Cus looked into Mike's eyes, he saw the pain, but he also saw the fire. "You are not a street kid anymore," Cus told him. "You are a warrior. But warriors must train their minds before their fists." From that day, Cus became more than a trainer. He became the father Mike never had, the anchor that kept him from drifting too far into darkness. Mike moved in with Cus, and life changed. Cus gave him rules, discipline, and a dream. He taught Mike the peekaboo boxing style, hands high, constant movement, relentless pressure. He trained Mike's body until it moved like a machine. But more importantly, he trained Mike's mind. "Fear is your friend," Cus would whisper. "It wakes you up. It makes you sharp. Without fear, you are nothing." Mike absorbed every word. He trained harder than anyone, running before sunrise, punching until his arms ached, studying old fight films like a student studying history. He was building more than muscles. He was building a new self. Every punch in the gym was a conversation with his past. Every drop of sweat was a memory leaving his body. Slowly, the shy, bullied boy began to disappear, replaced by something new, something dangerous. By 18, Mike Tyson was already knocking out grown men. By 20, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history. The world called him Iron Mike, a man whose fists could end a fight in seconds. But deep inside, the boy with the ghosts was still there. The iron on the outside was hiding the cracks within. Fame came fast and heavy. Overnight, Mike Tyson went from sleeping in poverty to sleeping in mansions. The cameras loved him. The crowd adored him. The money poured in. But fame is a dangerous friend. It feeds your pride, but it also feeds your weaknesses. Without Cuz, who died before Mike reached his peak, there was no one to guide him. The father figure who had saved him was gone, and in his place came managers, promoters, and so-called friends, many of whom cared more about his earnings than his soul. Mike's life outside the ring became a storm. The parties were endless. The spending was wild. The headlines were as much about his scandals as his knockouts. He was still unbeatable in the ring, but outside it, he was losing the real fight, the fight for himself. The 1990s brought the cracks to the surface. He lost his championship in a shocking upset. And then came the darkest chapter, a prison sentence after a controversial case. For 3 years, the man who once terrified opponents now sat in a small cell. Prison stripped away the noise. No cameras, no crowds, no yes men. Just silence. And silence has a way of making you face the things you've been running from. Mike thought about his childhood, his mistakes, and the people he had lost. Prison broke something in him, but it also built something. When Mike came back to boxing, he was still dangerous. He won fights. He lost some. But the aura, the fear, never left. People still wondered, how could someone rise again after so much destruction? The truth is, Mike Tyson's real power was never just in his punches. It was in his survival. He had learned to fight before he learned to read. Pain had been his teacher. Loneliness had been his coach. Every opponent he faced in the ring was easier than the ones he faced in life. Today, Mike Tyson is not the same man he once was. The rage has cooled. The eyes that once stared down champions now soften when he talks about his children, his pigeons, his wife. He speaks about peace, love, and the emptiness of chasing wealth without inner happiness. He admits his mistakes without excuses. He laughs at himself. He cries when he remembers his mother, Cuz, and the boy he used to be. The iron has rusted in places, but the heart has grown. Mike Tyson's real success is not the belts, the knockouts, or the records. It is that he is still here, still breathing, still learning, still fighting, not with fists, but with truth. Some people fight to win. Mike Tyson fought to survive. And survival is the greatest victory of all.